how do we go pour this into somebody's life? That's what I want to hear.
What is Propel?
That's where so many companies miss out. Thriving cultures are powered by healthy communities.
So Reggie, what's the difference between a performance problem and an alignment problem, and why do most leaders confuse the two?
So Chuck, I think when companies and individuals become out of line, it shows up in performance. So I think that they're tied together. So when people get out of alignment, it's kind of like driving a car. You feel that wobble and things start to shift. It affects the performance of the vehicle. Same thing's true in our businesses, is people just have challenges that cause them to kind of get out of focus, and they get out of kind of the vision and the direction that we collectively are going together. And it ends up showing up in a poor performance. And so when people get out of alignment, either individually or corporately, performance is affected. And so I think what most people think is you can fix everything with more activity and more performance. Well, if there's not alignment in terms of balance and where we're headed together, performance is much more difficult to predict. And so I think alignment affects performance in a dramatic way, both individually and corporately.
You know, I feel that there is a blinding factor in every organization, which is a performance problem. Mm-hmm. It is that thing that's always in your face. It's like a sporting event it's all about performance. You know, why didn't we score? Why didn't we get it down the field? But what they don't want to look at is alignment. So can you explain really what alignment is when people say, well, if you say I have an alignment problem, what does that even mean?
So I think the easiest thing to describe it is back to your sporting analogy. You know, if you're on a football team and you've got 11 people on offense, all of them have responsibilities to move the ball forward, and each of them have a specific role to get that job done. So if you've got one player who doesn't actually execute on the play called at their particular role, it throws off the whole rhythm and cadence of the team. That's what alignment is. We have a call that is pushing us together, but all of us have individual roles that we have to execute on. And so alignment to me is when we know together we're going to a certain place and we all take the responsibility that our role requires to move the ball forward. And so alignment is that we're shared in value, we know where we're going, and we're all executing in that direction. And so if someone is kind of not running the play called, so to speak, it just throws the alignment of the entire organization off. And so that, to me, that's what it is. Where are we going? What plays are being called, and are we all individually doing the job we're called to do to move forward as a team?
Yeah, I as you're talking, I have this visual in my head that, let's say that the running back is going to run through the line, right? And so, but if the line is not in alignment,
right,
that every one of those players, it can't just be the two where the hole's going to be, right?
Right.
Every one of those players has to have a job doing that job so that hole is there.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden you start seeing people that seem to be out of the play. They're not really in that hole, so to speak, that kind of slack off and don't do their job. It affects the entire result of the play. And so unless people are at a place to where they're committed to, this is the play call, this is the direction that we're going, and we're collectively going to do our jobs to move in that direction. Listen, you may have the most talented people in the world on your team, but if they can't run the plays called, we're going to have chaos. And nobody's going to score, and we're going to lose. So alignment is about how do we get everybody in the same playbook, running the exact same plays, that understand the calls that were made, where we're hoping to go, and the requirement of their execution that they have to this unit. As opposed to me just running, I'm a wide receiver and, I'm going to run whatever and do whatever I want. And I hope you can find the ball, get the ball to me. That's not the way alignment works. Everybody's got a job to do, and we're going to do our job and execute and hopefully find success.
And so therefore it wasn't a performance problem. It's an alignment problem. But everybody wants to point to the person that didn't get through the line, or the one tackle that didn't get his man moved over to the side. That's not the problem. It's everybody was out of alignment. So how do we bring this back? Because everybody wants to talk about the top rep didn't do his job, or, the person in accounting didn't do their job. The person in production, if they would have just done this, I would have been able to sell that. But when it all comes down to it, that everybody has to be in alignment for a performance. I feel that when you have like company A, and company A, they struggle to get over, say, $2-3 million. But company B, they went into business this exact same time, maybe 3-4 years ago, and they're already at $20 million. One's in alignment, and the other one's still trying to figure out how to perform.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what we're doing?
And if you think about it like this, you would hate watching a football game with me. Especially, I played receiver in college, and one of the things that they drilled on us is every play, there were specific execution requirements for the entire play to move forward and us to have success. And so, for example, our quarterback, they would call a 51 wide for me, which is I would go down 15 yards and come back to 12. 15 yards down the field, come back to 12. 15 down, and then I turn and come back to the quarterback. Well, the quarterback simultaneously was dropping back, and on the 7th step, he planted his back foot, and he threw the ball where I was supposed to be. At the same time, the back was couple blocking, which was allowing him to create this pocket so that the quarterback had the time to hit the 7th step. The lineman had to figure out call at the line to make for sure that what the defense was doing, we had it. There's just so much intricacy to alignment for success, right? And so if I went down and ran a 12 back to 8, the quarterback threw where I was supposed to be at 15 back to 12, whose fault's that? It's mine. Like I didn't run the route. Successful teams realize that for collective success, we all have a play to run in sync that creates a possibility of success. So if the lineman doesn't do their job, because I would probably push back with you a little bit. Sometimes there's an individual person who doesn't do what they're supposed to do, and it causes the play to break down, so to speak. So sometimes there is an individual who just didn't do their job. But ideally, what you're looking for is everybody to understand the play call, the direction we're headed. I'm doing my job. And so if you're watching a football game with me and you go like, my God, Reggie, that quarterback sucks. He overthrew. Well, the fact is I see this. I go like, did the receiver run the right depth in the route? What else is going on around here that's causing this play not to have success to it? And I think that's where so many companies miss out, is they just don't have compelling information and clarity to each role, what they're supposed to do and the importance it has to our overall success.
I'm going to bring this one home.
Yeah.
Okay. Because to have clarity so that everybody on the field, everybody in the company, to have that clarity, what has to be there?
Yeah.
Communication, right?
Absolutely.
Communication has to be there. The play calling has to be there. The strategy has to be there. But inside of the organization, systems, processes are key, but unless it is communicated correctly, and it's not just, hey, this person told that person, but how we communicate, right?
Yeah, and if you've got to have so much clarity in your communication, because you can have the best play called in the world, but if people don't understand because they're not properly communicated, what is my responsibility on this play? They don't understand that. The play can be great. All the other players around them, but you've got one person who just lacks clarity in terms of, all right, on this play call, what am I supposed to do? It messes up everything. There is no alignment and there's very little chance of success. And so I think to your point, us understanding communication is critical to how we start building alignment and maintaining alignment, right? And so if people around us know even how we think and they understand that we all have a job to do. I'm going to do mine. And if I need to help somebody else, maybe I need to slow down and communicate more effectively. Maybe it's not a them problem. Maybe it's a me problem because I've just not communicated effectively. You can't run great plays and have success if people aren't talking to each other and understand each other.
So if the quarterback is in a different silo than the line, and the line is in a different silo than the running back or the receiver, can it work?
No, it can't. I mean, you're occasionally going to have some, because you've got talented people who maybe can overcompensate. But generally speaking, there's no consistency of success if people are on opposite pages. It's just not. So if you call a running play and I decide I want to run a route and I don't block my guy, we have no chance because I just decided I wanted to do something different than when the play was called. It just breeds chaos.
So if production has their silo and that production manager says, well, we did our job.
Yeah.
Why didn't you do your job? Yeah. And then you have sales says, no, we did our job, but you didn't do your job because you didn't do that. So alignment is not there. And
a part of alignment that's critical is expectation, understanding, like if I'm in production, where the handoff comes to me and how can we make that? Because you and I both know most sales organizations can't stand production and production can't stand sales. We realize that we can't have it without each other. So how do you create a level of expectation, standardize the process to where people can have open communication, but they don't misunderstand what my job is in this process. And I think that's where most people fail. And it's easy if you don't understand for a leader just to go like, well, they're not really good at what they do. And the fact is they weren't really empowered and they didn't have a clarity in terms of the way you communicated with it. Sometimes, not always. And their failure falls at your feet because as a coach, you have got to get very clear about expectation, roles, and responsibilities. And you've got to be such a great communicator that both sides feel like without each other, we cannot make it, period, with any amount of success.
I think we really laid out, because if everybody's following us right now, that it's not about how can we get the sales team. I mean, I own Top Rep. I would love for everybody to say, well, the reason why your company sucks is because of your sales team. Why? Because they have to hire us. But what do they have to do first before they can hire somebody to fix the sales team? They need to hire somebody to fix and understand the culture so that it supports every different department, right?
Yeah. And I think some of it is we're so isolated already. And the voices around us are kind of even inspiring that to a certain degree. Just go do your thing. Be the best that you can be. And don't really worry. That's not the way teams successfully operate. Everybody has to realize that the offensive tackle is as important as the quarterback. And everybody has to understand that each of their roles plays an intricate part to the success of the whole, right? And so, if, sales needs to understand, everybody needs to understand that every department has a responsibility for the overall success of where we're headed and the hopes and dreams that we're banking on. And so, this to me is about how do we get people out of the mindset of just, me finding success for me. And listen, when teams succeed, guess what? The people on it are the ones that find the success and enjoy the bounty, so to speak. And so, I think it does, like you said, start with clarity and communication and expectation being established.
So you talk about 3 types of clarity. We just talked about clarity, but you mentioned 3 types of clarity that most businesses are missing. Why is clarity the key to unlocking performance rather than the training and accountability and all the incentives that you can give your employees?
Well, I think all the training and incentives is important, but I think we're trying to solve the problem starting on the wrong end. Like we think that we can lure people into doing better things. Well, the reason clarity is so important to me is, have you ever been in a car, turn the lights off, pitch dark at night and try to go somewhere?
No.
Right. Why didn't you? Because you don't want to guess your way to where you're supposed to go. Clarity provides vision. Yeah. It gives us all a real clear directional sense, if you will. And so if people don't know where we're going, they're not clear on where we're going, why are we improperly judging them or thinking that maybe they got bad attitudes or lazy or whatever? They just don't understand. They're not clear on where we're headed. And so I think some of the areas that we miss clarity on as leaders is, number one, I think we've underplayed the value of chemistry. Mm-hmm. Like, we hire a bunch of talented people, but no one wants to be in the same room with each other.
Right.
And so clarity has to be, people have to understand that how important chemistry is, be clear on the importance of teamwork for the success that everybody's wanting to be attained. But nowadays, man, I see it. You probably do too, to where we're trying to build these superstars. And I'm glad we have superstars. But at the end of the day, this is a team game.
Right.
This is a team game. And so people have to understand, how do we pair people effectively to be able to work together to produce things that alone are impossible? Chemistry also leads, from a clarity standpoint, to collaboration. And collaboration allows us to do things that, like you and I are doing things together that probably would not get done or couldn't get done without both of us doing things to make this thing come alive. And so I think that clarity is critically important. It just clears the deck, and it gives you this idea of, all right, there's no fog here. This is exactly where we're going. These are the requirements of each of us. This is, an us thing, not a you thing. And how do we move forward together, I think is where clarity becomes so important.
So what is Propel, and why is it that you designed it as a people performance system rather than just a culture program for a team assessment?
Yeah, because I think thriving cultures have made a commitment to be powered by their community, and their community are the people inside of it. Chuck, you can have great systems and processes, and we've done a good job with that, and it's ever evolving in our industry. And I appreciate that. But the problem is, you can't leave your people behind. And if your people are not engaged, they're not connected, they're not feeling a part, their contribution being a part of something bigger, it's going to be really, really tough to build a team identity. It just really is. And, you have a bunch of talented people running around doing their own thing, and we just can't get a nucleus of growth collectively. And so, one of the things that I see happening here is, let's start with people. Like, let's start with, how do we empower them? How do we understand them? Like, why do they show up the way they show up every day? Why do they do the things that they do? Who are they better suited to work with as opposed to people we force them to work with? How do we, get them to a place to where they buy into us, not just me? And when you do that, you can propel a culture to thrive, not just survive. So now all of a sudden you've got people performing at a higher level. They're running on all 8 cylinders or whatever. Like the car I rode in with you this morning had probably like 40 cylinders. But where everything is firing and people are, then your systems and your processes make more. Here's what I think's happening. I think we're so concerned about having to deal with the dirty part of people's lives, that those things that they're struggling with. We just think change the system or process and that fixes everything. It doesn't. I believe thriving cultures are powered by healthy communities. People who are growing and developing, they're open with one another, they're connected to each other, they're not afraid to make a mistake, they'll learn from this mistake and grow through it. But that's what Propel does. It just takes the humanity of the business and really starts focusing on understanding it better individually as well as collectively, and then pairing people together to produce things that I can't do by myself.
As I'm getting to know this Propel, at a deeper level, it's there's books, there's all this stuff, and it all keeps telling you it's a people problem. It's a people problem. But this is the very first time that I have seen a system that you can bring into an organization that is done. It shows you how to communicate with people, because now you know who they are. And it's not just DISC. It's not just because they're dominant, submissive, they like to talk, or they're very analytical. That just tells you a little bit about who they are, but it doesn't tell you why they do what they do and why they would make a certain decision and how to talk them into a decision, depending on how you would want to sell your idea to them, right?
So there's two things that I think most leadership or leaders do that I think is a mistake. And the two things that they're overlooking, we've got dashboards, KPIs, all of that but most of that is historical. If you think about it, we set objectives and then they show up and the KPIs show us how close are they green, are they yellow, are they red? That's all historical data. The two factors that I think we overlook that Propel captures for the first time ever, I think, is this. How are people thinking and how are people feeling? And people like, me growing up in business, my bosses said to me, I don't give a crap how you feel, just show up and do the job. Well, if you believe the way people think and feel affects the way they behave, why don't you want to know that data more regularly? I have HR people tell me this. Yeah, twice a year we go in and ask 3 questions. Well, that would be great.
We have 3 questions.
Yeah, only twice a year people struggled, but they struggle mentally and emotionally every day. And I think elite leaders will find a way to diagnose that. And that's what we do, is we help them to understand. We show them things, we make them aware of things that hadn't shown up on dashboards yet with their people. They may be something going on at home. And if you don't think what goes on at home affects the way they show up at work every day, you're crazy. It just does. And so we want to isolate, all right, what are they, we want them and us to get the best out of them every day. Well, there's these barriers that generally are either emotional or mental that we trap that data. And we're able to go back to the leadership team and say, all right, take your KPIs and let's lay on top of that these, what I call emotional KPIs. And when you see a lag in performance, 100% of the time there's a driving reason behind it. We capture that. You know why? Because people, when they feel like you care, they'll tell you. And so it's been interesting to us to see how people have been kind of shocked at their own internal operating system. So why just kind of helps you to begin. There's 9 in this spectrum. And so they're different. And all of us have all 9 of them in us. But when they show up, and how they show up is really consequential to performance. So why.os starts at identifying. I'm aware now of kind of how I show up every day. The who.os gives you a sense of where chemistry lies inside of your team. So I've got people who bring me energy. I've got people who bring me their friction relationships, to where I know now going in, all right, Chuck's why is this. So I don't need to deal with Chuck, but I need to know how to reposition my communication with Chuck.
Yes.
So Chuck will receive what I'm saying and I'll receive back what Chuck is saying. And even though we're in conflict, we understand each other differently. This tool is about how do we unearth our own why, as well as those around us, this team we're a part of, so that that who is the pairing piece, the chemistry piece, the collaboration. And then the what is how do we advance? How do we then find projects, or now that we've paired people right, who are the best people to do this? Sometimes it's like, all right, I need a why from sales. I need a why from administration. I need a why from production. And we're going to sit down in a room based upon our whys and figure out a strategy that solves all of our problem, not just sales or production or administration. So they're the why of that other person is revealed and they go like, I didn't realize that. And it's just changed the dynamics of communication and conflict.
So what is your why?
Mine is make sense.
Make sense. Okay. Mine's contribute. Okay. And then, so we're going to break these down. So what is your who?
My why best served is with contributors. It's with people who are, trust is a big why that I'm compatible with. Now on the other side of it, friction people are, somebody like, a mastery. A mastery moves slow. They're the guys that are like, I need to know every detail of everything before I'm ready to move forward. If you don't want me to move forward, just don't, if it doesn't make sense to me, I don't care how smart you are, how deliberate you are, if it doesn't make sense to me, I don't move forward. So, but when it does make sense to me, a mastery will slow me down because they're like, give me 2 more weeks to think about this. Wait a minute. We've already decided this makes sense. Why can't we move forward? So inside of each of these different whys, there's opportunity either to bring energy. A contributor brings energy to me. Chuck goes like, yeah, that makes sense. Now, how do we go pour this into somebody's life? That's what I want to hear. Sometimes though, I need someone who comes in and slows me down. But usually I look at those people and go like, get out of my way. I don't even want to be in the same room with you. But so understanding how we start sharing our why DNA, so to speak, together and how it grows both of us and solves a problem that both of us have is critically important, I think, for success.
Now we know the why and we know the who, which is are we compatible with?
Yeah.
Where does the what fit in?
Yeah. All of us have individual talents and gifts, but there is a limit. This is what I'm not asking anybody else this is what my observation has led me to believe. Sometimes we run out of juice, and I think some of that is because we've isolated ourselves and we disconnected ourselves from other people, and I think it's been a huge mistake. And so the what to me allows that once I understand pairing and chemistry and the ability to collaborate, I think that through collaboration, we find new ground that we'd have never discovered individually. I think it's projects. We're avoiding gained ground because we just stay so far from each other. And so the what to me is, all right, now that we've paired, how can we advance everybody based upon this pairing? And so it's incumbent upon the who's to begin to look for things. And it's happening naturally for people to look inside of organizations and go like, oh, maybe if we, based upon our particular whys and this pairing, how can we help facilitate this ongoing problem that's been here for so long? And when you put two heads together instead of individual ones, it has a way of advancing us closer to the solution quicker.
So if I understand this correctly, we got the why. That is the main thing here. We
all starts with why.
Because I don't really want to know all of your stuff. I want to know what is your why.
Yep.
When I'm communicating, because we've got 50 people in this organization, and there are certain people that I have to communicate daily. And if I know their why, I know how to communicate with them. But I also know that the company has paired us strategically. Okay, so they know that we feed each other, that we fill each other's tank, right?
Yep.
And then when it goes to the what it's how we work together. It's how we move forward.
Yep.
So it's like we got together. We're now a superpower, and we use this to move
let's
forward.
go fix something.
Right.
Let's find something to use our superpowers. And it's not like we can go like, this is this is a combination. You got to take action. And that's what the what is, great, your why. Great, who you're best paired with. Now go do something. And so I think good pairings drive that naturally. So because usually people who find complementary kind of skill sets and enjoy being around each other and thinking about stuff and communicating effectively with each other, there'll be something that pops up just in that, connection that maybe they didn't understand or see until that moment.
We have DISC, right? And for years and years, you get this DISC test, and on the bottom of the DISC test or the report, it says how to work with them. And it always really got to me because it didn't really make a lot of sense to me because for me, I'm more of a director. I have very little room for BS. I got to get the job done. I'm a very A to B. Let's get the job done. But yet my why is contributor. And so I want to get the job done. I want to get there quick. My D is very high. My I, as many people are like, oh, Chuck doesn't talk, but my I is a lot higher than what you might think. But when it comes to that contributor piece of me, why would that be? Why would someone that's very direct, you'd think that would be a challenger, right? I'm in your face all day long, but I'm not. I want to get the job done. Does not mean I'm in your face. Does not mean I'm, for lack of a better term, does not mean I'm an asshole.
Right.
You know, I just don't have much room for discussion. You know, I just want to get the job done.
And why is that? And I think the reason is because you want better for people. See, contributors, they get up every day, and your methodology, your how, might be a little bit more direct, which it is clearly, but it's not out of anything other than I want your life better. And here I've found ways to get your life better. And so it frustrates you if people don't just follow based upon the work you've done to bring them to that point in that moment of time. And so you get up every day and go like, look, man, I want to contribute to somebody today. You sent me one of the greatest texts I'd ever received, literally, a week ago. And the essence of it was, dude, I want to help you. I want to help you. I really want to contribute to your life. And I think that's why you wake up like all that other stuff is like your deliverables, but you wake up every day going like, my mission in life is to help people contribute to their life. Now, how you go about that? Okay. You may be rough. You may be direct. You may be whatever, but the fact of the matter is it's motivated out of a good place. And that good place is, I haven't done this for 20 years, 30 years, whatever you've done it, just for me. I've done it so I can come to you and contribute into your life and take some of the guesswork out so you can get success faster. And if people get slow with that, that probably annoys you.
Yes.
Okay, right. And so that's why you wake up contributing every day. For me, my wife is a right way person. My wife's a pharmacist.
Yeah.
Now, as a pharmacist, I want her to do the right way. I don't want her, so she gets up and there's a path. You get on the path. If you get off the path, things come apart. And so that has been hard for me. We've been married 37 years. That's been hard for me because I'm like, even if you know the right way and I don't understand the right way, like you're telling me it doesn't make sense to me, I'm not buying in.
Yeah.
So we've gone for 36 years, like missing each other in that conversation, meaning I think she's wanting to argue and fight and she's got to have her way. And it's not that way at all. She knows that the right way is a straight path.
Yeah.
Me, on the other hand, I just have to sometimes sit and go, hey, honey, look, I don't really understand that. She goes like, oh, it doesn't make sense. We talk like that now. No, it doesn't make sense. Can you explain it to me? And it takes a 30-minute argument to a 30-second explanation.
Yes.
So if you know, we've got people that I deal with, but you and I were on a call the other day with a guy whose primary motivator in his why is trust. So if you show up late to a meeting, what's he think about you? Can't trust him.
Mm-mm. Black and white.
Right. So one of the things that we're doing inside of our program with Propel is we're creating these little playbooks that Chuck writes about himself, his why, his how, his what, and he gives kind of a brief explanation. And we're going to make these, available to all the team members so that the conversation can just move forward. And so having those kind of tools to access about each other takes the guesswork out of it. And if I take the guesswork out of it, I become more efficient. Your team becomes more efficient and more effective. Why wouldn't you want that? It's the biggest no-brainer I've ever seen.
I've got a good friend of mine, Dr. Gary Chapman.
Yep.
And he wrote the book that has gone all over the world. I don't know how many languages, but it's called The 5 Love Languages.
Yep.
Okay. And so inside of relationships, they say that he mentions the 5 love languages, whether it's, gifting, those kinds of things. What I look at when I see the whys is, now we have the 9 love languages for business, right?
Oh, that's good.
It really is. If I could teach you the 5 love languages on how to best communicate with your wife, your husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. But now you have this business. You've got 50, 60, hundreds of people inside of it. And now there's 9 ways to communicate.
Yep.
But you got to know how they want to communicate, right? Just like with your wife, you might think that she loves gifts. She doesn't like gifts. She just wants the dishes done.
Yep.
But you don't like doing dishes, so you don't do it. And there's that passing. Same thing here, that when you're talking about trust, he's going to be okay. I'm going to be 5 minutes late, but he'll be okay. You don't know that his why is trust. And the fact you walk in 5 minutes late, that door's going to be locked because he's telling you that you're late.
Or you show up 5 minutes late and he avoids you.
Yeah.
Won't talk to you. See, these cascading effects, because we don't know each other, show up every day and we just miss the signals. And so by knowing somebody at that, I love that. It's really the 9 love languages of business. Like how do you, and if you don't care enough to ask, why are you on the team? If we don't want to know people at that level, we are in a circular argument that we'll never get out of. It's like, we take titles, you do this because it's like, you've got children too. It never worked for me to go like, hey son, do this because I told you to. He was always looking at what did I do to support that? Like, it doesn't work anymore to go like, we got to communicate effectively. And you as a leader shut down on people. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
But it starts with, do we know each other deep enough and do we care about each other deep enough to know this so that we can have better relationships with the people that we show up and are with more during the day when we're our own families?
I love talking this out.
Me too.
Because as you're going, I'm like, I'm seeing the 5 love languages and it's huge.
So
everybody
good.
knows about it, but I'm like, well, here we have the 9 love languages because that's how you communicate at home. But even you can still do this over here, but over here, if you understand the 5 love languages and you understand that your wife wants a divorce because you keep giving her gifts and what she wants is the dishes done.
Why wouldn't you want to know that in business?
Yeah.
Really good.
Awesome.